Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast with Dotun Adebayo and Tim Vickery.
Yeah, no, this is the Global Soccer Interactive part of the Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast. The Legendino's here, as you can see, and our good friend Joe Gould from the Windows here as well. Joe, I've got a bit of housekeeping to get through. Tim, help me out if you can, because apparently we've got a WhatsApp group now. We've already got members going on there, and we're being encouraged to urge viewers, listeners to get onto the WhatsApp group and join in the conversation there as well. Yeah. I thought you were going to help me out. Okay, I'll do the rest. See, you've been so helpful so far. The other things we want you to do.
What is this WhatsApp of which you speak?
Yeah, you'll get there one of these days. It's what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up. Yeah, join the group, definitely, but also do rate us on this YouTube site, as it were, and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the pod, please, please, please. Don't need to beg you, but it's worth doing for us and for you and all, is what I'm told. So if you can, and also of course you can join us live and direct right now. Over the next hour we're talking football from around the world, and Joe and the Window are experts on world football. When I say experts, believe me, don't think there's anything we can't throw at them, apart from maybe, Joe, how come Sweden, with the best strikers in the world, are not making it to the World Cup? Shock. That people are horrified in Sweden. And also the fact that Norway and Denmark are doing so well hurts a little bit more too.
Oh, it's really wild. And they're not officially out of it yet. They're hanging on by thread. Yeah. They've sacked Jan Dahl Thomason, so they'll have a new manager coming in for November. So we'll see if they can get 2 wins and maybe sneak into a playoff spot. But it's not looking good. And yeah, it's one of the most baffling things in international football right now, for sure.
It's not as baffling as Nigeria hanging on by a thread as well. So the 2 teams that I represent, am I the jinx, or is it something what they ate or done?
You might be blinding them with your gold coat. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Tim's enjoying all this. No, but Tim, the one good thing about this, though, with Sweden, it's encouraging for all the other teams that it doesn't matter if you've got the world's best strikers. Football's such a game. It's a team sport, as you often say. It doesn't matter if you've got the world's best strikers. Doesn't count for anything if the team aren't playing the right system, because arguably, the coach got sacked. First time Sweden has ever sacked a coach in a World Cup tournament. Wow. Or any of its coaches. First time ever it's ever sacked a coach. Usually they retire, they do the right thing and go off into the sunset after not winning the World Cup, which they haven't done, but they got to a final in 1958, as everybody knows. But it levels the playing field, doesn't it? To say, look, they've got Alexander Isak. So what? We are minnows called Kosovo, and we'll beat them once, and then we'll beat them again.
I actually I think the qualification process, there must be a casualty. There must be. You need to have a ghost at the party. And Sweden are prime candidates. Nigeria's task is still not easy, is it? They're one of 4 African nations fighting to get into a playoff, and then there's a playoff, an intercontinental playoff to go through. And I think this adds spice. And I think we're a little bit worried when this campaign started that with 48 teams qualifying, we wouldn't have any casualties, but we've got them. We're getting them, and I think that's because one side of this story is Cape Verde, Uzbekistan, the first-time boys. But another side of the story is, well, look who's missing. And I think they're both of those are important parts of this whole qualification process. What gets you going more, Joe? The giant falling by the wayside, or the new boys storming the barricades?
Oh, they both honestly, they really do. And I think you could probably make an argument for Greece as well as one of those that have fallen by the wayside. Like they had a really good Nations League campaign. They were a team that we had pegged in that group with Scotland, with Denmark, to be a challenger to get out of that group. And yeah, they're eliminated officially. They're not going. So that was a surprise.
They gave it a good go against Denmark, it has to be said. But, Denmark are just in a different league, I think, to Greece. And Greece have been found out a little bit. But they gave it a good crack of the whip.
Yeah.
Which is more than I can say for the other two teams that I mentioned earlier on.
Yeah. So do we want to talk about how Nigeria got to where they are? Because it's actually very interesting. Yeah, so I'll try to be brief, but
no, take your time. I'm not listening. Take your time.
So it's actually, I mean, their qualifying campaign has everything to do with it, but it came out, news broke actually last week that there was a release that was sent to all the associations in Africa back in March that said that, okay, because Eritrea dropped out of their group and made a 5
Eritrea.
Sorry,
Eritrea. That's all right. I like Eritrea. I like Eritrea as well, but it is Eritrea. But yeah, or just say East African country.
Because they dropped out of their group, all the results for the teams that finish in second place in Africa will be nullified against the team that finishes bottom of their group. So in Nigeria's group, Zimbabwe finished bottom. Nigeria ended up tying twice with Zimbabwe, 1-1 each time. And so that actually proved to get them in and across the line ahead of a team that like Burkina Faso, who actually in the actual scheme of things finished on more points than Nigeria did. Burkina Faso finished on 21 points in their group. Nigeria finished on 17. But because of those results being nullified for Burkina Faso against Djibouti, 6-0 and 4-1 wins for Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso dropped 6 points, dropped 10 goals, and Nigeria needed a fourth goal to push Burkina Faso out of that top 4 for the playoffs, and they got it in like the 90th minute of their match. It was really late. It was a late goal, and that pushed Burkina Faso out. That pushed Nigeria in, and that's where we stand today. So pretty controversial, I think, in a lot of ways. A lot of people are upset. If you're Burkinabe, then you're probably pretty upset, I would imagine, because your team in the whole grand scheme of things performed much better than Nigeria did. But here we sit. So Nigeria is going to face Gabon, which will be a really good match in the playoffs. That'll be a good one. Two teams that have really good forward power. Their midfields and their defensive lines have potentially some issues. Yeah. So that'll be intriguing. And then the other one is DR Congo versus Cameroon, which I think will probably end 0-0 and go to penalties.
The Cameroon aren't the team that they used to be once upon a time, because again, they had, muscular, as people would describe it, attacking players.
Yes.
That was what they were about very much.
Yes.
And I don't, Nigeria, you make it sound really good the way that you described it, but Nigeria should never have been in the position that it had to hang on and look at other results to get a result through. And now, from what I understand, do we not have to win by a certain margin as well to progress towards World Cup?
No, that's happened.
Yeah,
that's happened already. Oh,
yeah.
God.
Yeah. That was that fourth goal, when Nigeria.
Oh, right, sorry.
Yeah, because Nigeria had to begin the Benin, needing 4 goals.
Yep.
Begin the Biguine. Was that a riff on beginning the Biguine?
Yeah,
I just want to know if my jazz credentials are up to what they used to be.
Yeah. So they're there now. They've got those goals, and now it's Gabon, and if they get through that, it's the winner of Cameroon. And Dr. Congo. And if they get through that, then it's an intercontinental playoff next year, where there'll be 6 countries going into this international playoff.
Yep.
And it depends. The top two go automatically through to decisive phases. Top two on FIFA ranking.
Correct.
And the other four, the lower ones on FIFA ranking, they have to play off against each other for the right to play these top two. Now, Nigeria are ranked quite highly. So I think Nigeria, if they can get through Gabon and either Cameroon or Dr. Congo, they will then only have just the one game and not the two playoffs. So it's still very, very convoluted. Of what we got left, Joe, the continents that we've got left, what gets you going most?
Yeah, good question. I think it's my region, actually. I think it's CONCACAF, and Europe is in for a fun finish as well. But Europe, I think, is a little bit more straightforward at this point. You still have the playoffs to go through, which will be really fun. But we don't quite know who we're looking at yet for those. Whereas in CONCACAF, there's only 2 matches left. November is it in terms of who's going to qualify automatically and who is going to the playoff. And CONCACAF will have 2 representatives in that playoff that Tim was just talking about. So the top 2 second place finishers in the region will be the ones that represent CONCACAF in the playoff. So
we got 3 groups of 4.
Yep.
Isn't it? The winners will go through automatically. And from those 3 groups, the best 2 second place teams will go into the playoff. Is that right?
Correct. Yes, that is correct. Yeah. And it's getting interesting.
At the moment, nothing is defined. Nothing at all.
Nothing is defined. The only thing that is defined in CONCACAF at the moment is that Bermuda is out. That is it. They have been eliminated. So, it's all to play for. And right now, if it stopped today, you would have Suriname in there for their first qualification, which is really interesting. They're leading Group A. They could have an even bigger margin of lead in their group, but they leaked a 96th minute equalizer to Panama in Panama, and so that one ended 1-1. Suriname really close to coming away with a famous win there. Also in that group, you've got Guatemala. Now this is interesting because Guatemala is done with their away games for qualification next month. Their final 2 games are both at home. Guatemala has never qualified for a World Cup before. So this is probably one of the best opportunities that they've ever had. However, they are welcoming both nations who are ahead of them in the group to their home. So they play both Panama and Suriname. So that will be pretty exciting. We'll see if Guatemala can get it done at home. El Salvador is pretty much out of it in this group. It's not looking very likely for them. They needed to really get something more than they did this window. They're not officially eliminated yet, but it's not looking very likely. So
they won their first game, didn't they? I think it was away in Guatemala. So they're thinking, right, we're there, dude, and then they've lost every subsequent game.
Yep. And this last window, I believe, was or maybe in November. It's going to be one of the last games at the Cuscatlán, which is their national stadium. They're getting a new one, which will be funded by China, and so that place is an absolute fortress for them. And so it's kind of a sad farewell that we're bidding to the Cuscatlán, because when that place is packed out, it is extremely hard to play in.
Looking at the CONCACAF sides. So we've got Suriname, Panama, Guatemala in competition.
Mm-hmm.
Jamaica, Curacao. Who saw that one come in? Honduras, who I've often seen as a well done. I've often seen as a sleeping giant, and Costa Rica. Whoever makes it through, can you see any of these sides making an impression in the World Cup next year, or are they just making up the numbers?
Yeah, I think this is the question that's on everyone's head, on everyone's brain at the moment is what can CONCACAF, what can these nations do? So it's tough because it is going to be a World Cup that's in our region, and I think that there's maybe a little bit for that to say that could be helpful. A lot of these countries have a huge presence here in the U.S., so they'll have full stadiums when they play here. It's a tough question. I mean, Jamaica Jamaica hasn't looked super strong, but they've looked better than they did in the Gold Cup. And we talked about this on the last episode too, is Jamaica seems to have found some mojo here in qualifying, although they did lose to Curacao this window at home, which was big for Curacao. And for a while, Curacao was leading the group in that automatic spot for qualification, which was massive. But then Curacao had a second home match against Trinidad, and they ended up dropping points in that one, which has really ended up being quite disappointing. So can one of these countries make some noise at the World Cup? Right now I'm saying no.
Maybe the more pertinent question is, which is the most likely, or which of these many countries will fare the best in the World Cup?
Always remembering the surprise that Costa Rica gave us in 2014.
Yeah.
I don't think even Joe Gould saw that one coming.
No, Joe Gould did not see that one coming at all.
But he was only a youngster in those days. Now he's a big old man. He should know. Which of these teams, Joe? Which of them is going to do the best? Not necessarily in terms of their ratings at the moment, but it's kind of a World Cup's a different kind of a tournament. Which of them is going to mature into the experience the best, perhaps? First timers and all. There will be some upset, won't they? We'll have a Saudi Arabia versus Argentina kind of moment, and that's not disrespect to Saudi Arabia. And in comparison to Saudi Arabia, all these CONCACAF teams are tiny nations of 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. And there isn't a huge strength in depth for them, although many of their players, as you've alluded to, play elsewhere, not least in the United States. So given that, I could see them holding their own in 1 or 2 matches, depending on how the draw goes. And I wonder which one of them will be the most likely to leave the World Cup proudly.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I honestly I'm I'm struggling with it because Honduras, I don't see their defense lasting. Their attack, I don't think is strong enough to cause an upset. Jamaica, it's like flip a coin, who's going to show up. And like a Suriname, this would be their first experience. Maybe that's it. I mean, if Suriname is the representative, maybe that's what propels them into getting some sort of result that, hey, this is our first World Cup. We're excited to be here. And they're the ones that maybe get it. I mean, they've assembled a decent squad. I think scoring is an issue for them, but defensively, they're quite capable. So I'll say Suriname for now. It's going to be interesting to see. And I see a comment on the screen there about Curaçao's attack is the real deal. I mean, they do have a juicy attack, that's for sure. It's fun to watch. And when Chong is in the squad, I think it's even better. He wasn't there this month, and I think that hurt them. If Curaçao ends up making it, they could be really fun to watch.
It's funny. The reason I know Curaçao is from Henri Charrier's real-life narrative, although it's been questioned as to how real life it is, subsequently, of his escape from Devil's Island. He was a French convict in the 1930s, I think, Henri Charrier, and he wrote this book, Papillon, which was made into a film starring Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman. I didn't think the film was all that. I bunked off school to see the film. I got my entire school. This is a true story. In those days, we couldn't really afford books, not least hardback books. Just couldn't afford it. It was so expensive. So my father used to subscribe to these things that you'd see on the back pages of the Sunday magazines. So like 4 books for £1 or for 99 pence, 4 hardback books, 99 pence. And Papillon was one of those books that came through. And it was the best thing I'd ever read. I couldn't read enough of it. And I literally got half of my year at school reading that book. So obviously when the film was coming out, me and another guy called Kevin David had to bunk off school to go to lessons.
It never works. When you love the book, the film is always a disappointment, isn't it? It
does let you down. But it was exciting to see the map of his escape all through, that kind of Caribbean region. And Curacao popped up as one of the destinations. I always found it fascinating that they had this cedilla under the sea, don't they, of Curacao to make it soft rather than to make it hard. I always found that interesting, and it's the same way that you remember a football kit. I always remember that little cedilla of Curacao. So Curacao are necessarily my second team. I just don't know which is going to be my first
in the
team.
absence of Sweden and Nigeria.
Well,
Yes.
I said I don't know which is going to be my first team. That's the problem. England have already qualified, and you might find this humble Nigerian supporting England. And Norman Tebbit, the late great, will be so pleased.
Well,
Sorry,
Carol put you right. England versus Brazil 2002.
She did.
She put you right.
She did put me right there. But okay, in that region. I'd have to go for the Reggae Boys, really. Thanks for mentioning my wife. Yeah, I'd have to go for the Reggae Boys. They're going to get spanked. I hoped they would do something in 1998 when they made it to World Cup first time in France, but they were really, really disappointing. I just think
they weren't.
Well, you say that they had one match in which they were half decent.
They beat Japan. It's a really good result. Yeah. And they gave Croatia a game. Croatia got to the semi-finals. The problem was, and I know René Simões, the Brazilian who took them there, and he did an unbelievable job. He did a fantastic job. But it's a classic. It's almost like a case study in marketing. Do not oversell your product, because he had them with his kind of religious revivalism, saying we're going there to win the World Cup. We're not going there for tourism. We will be playing 7 games. And they believed it. And so the first World Cup, which was a good World Cup, they got hammered in one game, Argentina. But because he'd sold it so much, they took a big dive afterwards. Had he been sensible with it and said, well, we're not going to win this time, we're putting down a marker, then they would have been able to build on it. But he didn't. He oversold it. And what was a good first campaign turned out to be seen as a disappointment because it had been oversold. I know the fella who coached them afterwards and some of the people in the FA, and they said, yeah, René was great, but, he went too far. He oversold the product. Because it is the first World Cup. It's not easy. There's emotional pressures in the global spotlight that they've never experienced before. Never. And quite often with teams in this situation, they don't really show anything until the third game. It's already passed them by. And then in the third game, oh yeah, they're not bad, but the first it's just a blur.
Have you seen that? Oh, sorry, Joe, you're going to come in, but let me throw my question in and feel free to answer this in any way you want. Have you seen that social or cultural aspect of qualifying or near qualification in the World Cup amongst any of the CONCACAF nations, where the people, let alone the players, the people believe, yeah, we're going to wait, we're going to make it to the World Cup, we're going to win it. Have you seen any of that?
Yeah, I have seen it. As we get some comments sometimes, actually, that come across our X feed, which makes me chuckle sometimes because, Curaçao's going to win the World Cup, or Nigeria even.
Don't laugh at Nigeria, please. Come on,
we had one on the World Football phone in on Monday from Scotland.
That's true. That is true. Yeah,
we'll see.
So never mind England. But yeah, realistically though, do they believe, or are they just flexing?
No, I think there is legitimate belief there with them, and you've got other countries too. I mean, Honduras and Costa Rica and even Panama. I've seen remarks and I know people who are from those countries, and it's legitimate. They think they have every much a shot as anyone else. So it makes it fun.
Tim, did you not use the phrase "it's the hope that kills you"?
Yeah, well, it's not mine, but it's also the hope that sustains you, isn't it? I mean, this is a delirium, isn't it? This is delirium. The idea that these countries are going to win the World Cup, But why not embark on it for a while? Why not? No,
Yeah.
as long as you're prepared for the soft landing when hard reality bites you on the unmentionables. No, I think part of it is the hubris is part of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And especially, and they are magical moments. The first time the national anthem's played in a World Cup, the magical moments, because it's a declaration of that nation. Hey, we exist. Look at us. We're here. We're part of it, and
It's not
that's
just
great.
magical. I think it's so emotional. I don't think English football fans or football fans of England can understand, because
No.
it feels like England's always been there.
Yeah.
Scottish fans will understand. The Welsh fans will understand. Northern Ireland will understand. The first time I saw Nigeria in a World Cup, and I hadn't lived in Nigeria for 20 years by that time, I was very emotional. I was, there were tears, or at least dust in my eyes. Smoke. It was smoke. Forgive me. Smoke got in my eyes that time. And, if I hadn't rushed to the bathroom, the smoke would have consumed me. It really is emotional. And to score, do you remember the goal, the Yakini goal?
Yeah, oh God,
Well,
yeah.
imagine what I was going, let alone 200, 170 million other Nigerians.
Yeah.
Hey, it was, and Yukini, sadly no longer with us, gave us that moment to savor when he rushed into the net and just shook the net in a kind of a primordial cry of ecstasy. It was. I'm sorry to get all poetic about this, Joe, but I totally get all those minnow countries, and it would be a great place to be, wouldn't it? I mean, Jamaica, I can tell you, if Jamaica, Tim mentioned being Japan. Okay, I wasn't in Jamaica for that. I was in England. But if you'd been in Jamaica for that, it would have been like the second coming. It would have been like Haile Selassie landing in Jamaica in 1966, when all the Rastas came down from the hills and rushed the plane. So they wouldn't let Haile Selassie off the plane for about an hour. He had to just sit there on the plane and wait, because there are all these long.
But it's so much like the life of Brian, isn't it? Because they all think he's the Messiah or something. He's like,
he's a naughty boy.
Yes. Sticking with CONCACAF, Joe, are we starting to see something from the USA?
Yeah, it's again a good question. We talked about the last time I was on. We talked about them a little bit too, and how things were not looking so good. But this window, they were all right. They beat Australia, drew with Ecuador. You would know the Ecuador results. And I think this was the first time that we've seen Pochettino bring in a squad that was close to probably what we're going to see next summer. There were still some key names missing, I would argue, but it was a much better performance from the US, and so I'm feeling better about them personally. But again, still have questions about how far can they really go. We'll have to see.
What about on Mexico? Shellacked 4-0 by Colombia. All right, they got a draw, not very impressive draw with Ecuador later on. But Mexico, how big are the expectations in Mexico? And are they going to be able to live up to any of them?
The expectations are high. Expectations for Mexico are always high. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see if they can live up to them, because there's a lot of questions, I think, surrounding the manager at this point in time. Also players, Rodrigo Huescas picked up a really nasty injury playing for FC Copenhagen. And unfortunately, Mexico's best right back isn't going to be at the World Cup. He's already been ruled out for it. So that's disappointing. So yeah, there's still question marks for Mexico, and it's funny, it's almost role reversal, this month between them and the US. Last month we were all questioning the US. This month we feel a bit better about them. This month we're questioning Mexico. Last month they were okay. So it's just this revolving door of where things currently stand, and Mexico will definitely have a lot of pressure on them. This is going to be a World Cup in their region, and they're going to want to do well, and the people will want them to do well. We were just talking about expectations and how people believe that they can win the World Cup. And I think Mexico is one of the teams, one of the nations that people firmly believe that they have a good shot at going deep in this competition. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, well, there's certainly one of the major teams from your region that have never really lived up to what people expected of them in World Cups. We'll come back to this in a moment because I do think, Tim, concentrating on CONCACAF is the right thing, not least in the week that Donald Trump brought peace to the world, apparently. We'll come back to that in a moment or two. Apparently, hold on, we'll come back
Do we
to
have to?
Yeah, I do want to hear about whether, America's got the World Cup fever yet and what a difference of pressure there is, in America. America is going through a momentous time, I think it's fair to say, for better or worse. But you've got a question, Joe, and it's about football in Malaysia and Indonesia. I do urge listeners, if you want to join in this conversation, then do feel free. It's called the Global Soccer Interactive, which means that you can join in at any point. In the usual way, go into the screen underneath where you see us now. There'll be pointers as to how you can join in. Either give us a call or join in by text. Yeah, this one. So this is from John, or C Van John. Hi there. Would like to ask your take on Patrick Kluivert's dismissal from the Indonesia job and also on the latest scandal involving Malaysia. Your fan from Malaysia. Thanks for being a fan from Malaysia. But what's the scandal, Joe?
Yeah, so Malaysia has been rocked at the moment. They have been caught by FIFA for fielding ineligible players. So over the last probably 8 months, so since the start of the year, really, and it probably goes back to about a year ago. They've really been pushing. Malaysia has been pushing to try to get a lot of dual nationals, and so they've introduced 7-8 new faces into the team. Guys that are playing in Argentina. There's a player playing in La Liga at Alaves, and there are some players playing in Turkey who have since moved to play in Malaysia now for Johor, which is the biggest club in Malaysia. And so long story short, it's come to light that the players or the federation falsified documents with these players. And so they have fielded these players in official matches in Asian Cup qualifiers. They were reported to make the one-time switch to play for Malaysia. And there was an investigation launched because there was a complaint that was logged by Vietnam in June after their Asian Cup qualifier game against Malaysia. They alleged that Malaysia fielded ineligible players. And so FIFA launched an investigation and found that, yes, these players falsified documents, passports and otherwise. That means that they actually don't have any heritage from Malaysia and are not actually eligible to represent the country. And so when this all broke out, a lot of the players were like, oh, it's just an administration error. Don't worry about it. Well, come to find out, sorry, that's not actually true. There's going to be some serious consequences here. The federation's already been fined. The players have been banned for a year from playing for any football at all, club or national team. And I suspect, although this is not official yet, but I suspect that the AFC, that's the Asian Football Confederation, is going to nullify the results that Malaysia has against Vietnam in June and against Laos, actually, in the March window, because there was an eligible player played in that game too. And so their Asian Cup qualification campaign now is taking a turn for the worse. That has not been made official yet. I suspect it will be. But yeah, it's a bit chaotic with Malaysia right now. They don't look good fielding ineligible players. And you will know that this is not the first time that things like this have happened. There are other countries who've done the same thing and faced repercussions as well. So
that might be quite a neat segue into Africa.
No, it's not. It's a rubbish segue into Africa.
Yeah, just because Nigeria is still alive because of South Africa fielding ineligible players.
This is true. This is true.
true.
These things happen. I like to think Nigeria is alive through the love of God and mercy and everything else. Yeah, we're a very religious country, you see.
Can I just speak real quick on Kluivert, because that was the other part of that question, and then I know we have another guest coming on, but yeah, Patrick Kluivert, they announced today that they've let him go. Indonesia did not qualify for the World Cup. They didn't even get to a second place in the playoff that just finished. The expectations were pretty high for them, and they brought Kluivert in. I don't even think it's been a full year yet, and he definitely did not meet expectations, and he's already been shown the door. So not a great campaign from him, and true disappointment for Indonesia, I think.
This is a football mad part of the world.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I've only learnt this quite recently, just how football crazy it is. But so far, they're not producing on the field, are they?
They are not.
There's a lot of betting goes on in that part of the world. Anyway, let's bring on the question of Africa, Tim, that you introduced very nice. I see the way you did it, because you did it for logistical reasons. But stay with us, Joe, because we've got Maher with us, Maher Mezahi.
It's lunchtime. It's lunchtime. I'm just in the mood for some chicken tikka masala. How you doing?
I'm glad Tim said that and not me, Maher. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me on. I feel like I should be wearing a fedora or a cowboy hat or something.
No, because what we're doing here is it's a Barrington Levi lookalike contest, and I thought I was going to win, but Dotun does me every time. He just turns up and says, "Here I come. Here I come." You won't get any of these references, but don't worry.
I was gonna ask Joe, since he's on the show with me this time. Do you understand who Barry Livington is, or is it just me?
That one's over my head as well.
Okay, perfect. All right. So
I bet you both know Barrington Levy's music. On the intercom, Rosie tell me to come. Say she didn't have a daughter. She did have a son. Here I come. Because I'm broader than Broadway.
They're not broader than Broadway, mentally anyway. They don't know him. No one knows him. Only we know him.
Oh, then you see, I was going to sing Englishman, I'm me brethren, and the daughter, I'm me sister. There's a lot of Barrington Levy's. What does it echo? Is my echo bouncing off your walls, mate?
I just
enough already.
One of these screws. I just wanted to make sure I'm not tall enough to.
You're going to hit it, and if you do hit it, I'll let you know.
Maher, looking at the African qualifiers, all of the first ones to get through, it's all your part of the world, isn't it? It's
yeah.
How do we explain such a thing?
Well, the first four teams to qualify, as you mentioned, Dotun, Morocco was number 1, Tunisia was number 2, and then Algeria and Egypt qualified this window. How do we explain it? First of all, I think when you talk about longer formats of qualifying, like in this particular format, we had 10 matches all in one group. That's pretty unprecedented in Africa. Usually we have a group of 4 and then we have a playoff because we only had the 5 spots. This time around, we have, of course, 9.5. So we had 9 groups of 6. And we had those sort of pot 4 teams. So we had Seychelles in this qualifying. We had Eswatini, Lesotho, teams that usually never make it this deep into qualifying. So I'm saying all this to say that when you have this extended version of qualifying, first of all, like the way you manage travel, the way you manage infrastructure, all of that becomes very much a factor. And so to think about Morocco, I think Morocco, of their 8 matches, because one of their teams, Eritrea, dropped out, so they only played 8 matches instead of 10. I think they played 6 of them.
Eritrea.
Yeah, you missed Joe. Yeah, you missed Joe Gould's archipelago moment.
I've been saying that a lot this week because Cape Verde qualified, but yeah. So Morocco, I think, played 6 of their 8 matches at home. South Africa, not a North African country, but South Africa played 7 out of their 10 matches at home during these qualifiers. Algeria played 6. So because they have good infrastructure, if you'll come up against a side like a Somalia, for example, which doesn't have a homologated stadium, to save costs, they'll accept an invitation from their opponent saying, we'll pay for your flight, we'll pay for your hotel, we'll pay for everything. Just come on and play against us. Your home match, make it an away match against us. And
that's wrong, isn't it? That's wrong.
It is.
That interferes with the integrity of the whole thing. It's wrong.
100%. 100%. But it happened a lot. Like I would say maybe 50% of qualifiers were played in Morocco this time around, because even if a team wasn't playing in Morocco's group, they would be hosting. They have memorandums of understanding with, I think, 30 federations, where they, just because they want to be a footballing superpower, they want to build on the soft power, on the sporting diplomacy, they allow anybody to come and play. So on any international break, there could be 6 to 7 World Cup qualifiers taking place in Morocco. So infrastructure, football management becomes much of a bigger factor, and as a result, home field advantage as well. And as a result, I think the North African nations, I don't like to make sweeping generalizations, but they tend to be richer. Those 4 nations that we mentioned, if you go GDP per capita, I think besides Egypt, they're all, in the top 15, top 10. All of that makes a difference.
Do you think, because my older brother, that you met over the phone, Tim, he now lives in Morocco, so he's enjoying all of this. In fact, he's probably watching us right now, because he messaged me the other day to say that he was watching the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast the other day. Do you think, when Morocco clearly are the brand leaders for Africa now,
they're in the under-20 world final. So Argentina against Morocco on Sunday in Chile. Is this also a product of the French and the Dutch diaspora?
They do a better job than any other African federation in sort of integrating, recruiting players from the diaspora, even at the youth levels. So even at the under 17, under 20 level, you find players that are born in Amsterdam and so on and so forth. But still, they had about half their starting lineup that's produced locally by their central academy called the Mohammed VI Academy. And this is something that was built by public funding. They bring in some of the best young football coaches to sort of develop talent there as well. And even if you go through the senior national team, many of them, Nea Fegard, former West Ham, currently at Olympique Marseille, Asdin Ounahi, currently at Girona, formerly of Marseille as well, Youssef Nasiri, played at Sevilla, Fenerbahce, no less than 4 or 5 starters are actually from this Mohammed VI Academy. So again, talk about infrastructure, talk about development, and just a political will. You realize how important that is, because Morocco is not the richest country in Africa. But I think when it comes to a political will, sporting diplomacy is central to how they think they're going to develop their country. And as a result, I think we see the positive results on the pitch.
Yeah, I was wondering if, and no doubt the king of Morocco, he's actually loved by his people, because I went around Morocco, I couldn't find, obviously people aren't going to go out and demonstrate openly maybe against but it seemed like he was loved by his people, and he'll benefit from the World Cup being co-hosted there amongst other things. But I do wonder whether Morocco is, flying off, leaving the rest of football in Africa behind it as a representative or as the main poster country for football in Africa, whether it's bringing the other countries along to the extent that we see we see unexpectedly good performances from Africa as a result of what Morocco did in the last World Cup, and also what they're doing now as well in terms of football, or are they just going their own way ahead of everybody else?
I think both answers. I think they're sort of well on their way. They're trailblazing. They're far ahead of everybody else. At the same time, people see this as an example now, because like I said, they're not the richest country. And other countries in the past, like Gabon, for example, or Equatorial Guinea, they've had the political will, the economic capital to try and put in place a footballing project. Gabon hosted the AFCON twice, in 2012 and 2017. The problem is that the money, the funds, the ideas were not managed correctly. I remember the former president paying Lionel Messi $3 million to come and just for a photo opportunity. He came for, I think, 24 hours or 48 hours. He put the first stone, I think, down for one of the stadiums, or maybe it was a footballing academy, and he was off in $3 million in his pocket. That's a waste of funds. Yeah, exactly.
We'd have done that for half the fee, wouldn't we?
Well, mate, I'd have done that for 1/1,000,000th of the fee.
So I think what Morocco's showing people is, okay, when the money is spent, they're spending a lot of money, but when it's spent in intelligent fashions, when you have the right people managing it, as well as the quality. They are a football mad country. They do have the talent in the diaspora. All the ingredients are there. And I think that's why they're sort of pulling ahead.
If you look at the sub-Saharan African qualifiers, you got Ghana, Cape Verde. what a story. South Africa, Ivory Coast, Senegal, and one of Nigeria, Gabon, Cameroon, and Dr. Congo. Who are going to be the best sides from that? Can you see any of those sub-Saharan African sides making a real impression next year?
Senegal. There's because Morocco, when I speak to people that aren't maybe following African football on a daily basis, Morocco is always they're the cute, thing to talk about because the World Cup's coming up, because they're doing so well in the youth national team. But if you talk to people that are, in it, they'll say Senegal are the team to look out for, actually. And the only reason why they're not complete favorites coming up at the upcoming AFCON is because Morocco is hosting it. So Morocco, of course, is going to have. But those are the two teams that are top in Africa at the moment. And Senegal, it's just the amount of talent that they're producing is unrivaled on the continent. And they do this via various academies. They have, of course, the most famous one is called Generation Foot, and it's funded and sort of co-built by FC Metz in France. And they run things very well on the ground. It's by a former player named Madi Touré and a former agent. And then basically what they do is Metz in France have the right of first refusal on one or two talents per year. So they can go and pick out the best talent. They go to play in Metz for a year, and then from there they go with a huge sell-on fees to other places in Europe. So Sadio Mane came from there. Crystal Palace's Ismail Assar came from there. Lamine Camara, currently at Monaco, big talent in central midfield, also came from there. Even Papi Cisse, if you guys remember him from Newcastle as well. So Generation Foot is maybe the best academy in Africa, but then they also have 3 or 4 other very good ones, whether it's Casaspor or Giambars and so on and so forth. So I think it's become like an economy of sorts. It's become a real way of making money in Senegal. And nothing motivates like money, like cash. And so I think that's one of the reasons why. Because again, if you look at the population, 25 million people, that's not a huge pool to draw from. Not a huge amount of capital as well. They're football mad, but so are other countries. But I think they just see that this works. So if this works, we should replicate it. And it's become, like I said, an economy. And so Senegal are the team to look out for, because on paper, they're by far the best team. And then they also have a coach in Pape Thiaw, who's been in charge now for a little more than a year, who really knows his squad. Because Aliou Cisse was like that too. He was very close to the players. He knew their tendencies. But Pape Thiaw, I think, is doing a little bit better than Aliou Cisse was at the time, which is crazy to say because Aliou Cisse was in charge for nearly 100 matches. I think he lost maybe 6 or 7 of them. And if you look at the matches he lost, it was AFCON final, World Cup against England. It was really matches that they weren't expected to win. But Pape Thiaw, I remember going through Aliou Cisse's matches, and I saw how many times does this team score 4 goals? And I think it was 3 or 4 times in the 100 matches. So they were much more of a pragmatic side, much more hesitant to push forward. With Pape Thiaw, they've already equaled that in less than 20 matches. So they seem to be much more of an attacking side, and they're capitalizing on some of their strengths. So Senegal, I think, are the team to look out for. Absolutely.
Yeah, Joe, you were nodding almost throughout that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I was just going to add that Senegal hasn't lost a match in the last year. They do look really strong. So I just wanted to agree with Maher because it's a good shout.
Just a quick point about Morocco as well. They set a record this international window. They've won 16 consecutive matches, bypassing a record that was co-held by England and Spain. Although if you do look at the opponents that they beat, there were a lot of Zambia and the Congo, Brazzaville, not Dr. Congo, Congo Brazzaville. So it wasn't necessarily that there was only one World Cup participant in the 16. It was Tunisia. So definitely a tough or easier route, but they are record holders. So.
And
Morocco and Senegal.
Senegal just announced a friendly with Brazil next month, so we'll see how that goes over.
Interesting.
Stadium.
As Romario would say, they all count, Tim. They all count, even the schoolboy matches. The matches.
Indeed, yeah. But I'm a bit suspicious about them because all of these records, because they always tend to go wrong. Just when you don't want it to go wrong, and it even happened. It ended up
Argentina?
not being a tragedy, but Argentina. This massive record-breaking unbeaten run going into the World Cup, and the first game. Oh, obviously that's an easy win. That's Saudi Arabia.
Aha.
And Algeria. If you remember, they beat Algeria was I think 35 games. Argentina was 36 games. Algeria took that record into the 2023 AFCON. Sierra Leone draw with them, and then Equatorial Guinea lose to them. So yeah, I think sometimes those can be Bad news, I think. Yeah.
The gods of football love bringing them down, don't they? They love. It's one of the favourite things that the gods of football on their Mount Olympus. They're getting together and thinking, ha ha, ha ha.
And those whom the footballing gods wish to destroy, they first make mad amongst themselves. So they've done
They
that
first
to
make born in
Nigeria.
Sweden.
Yeah, I'm coming on to Sweden. I said they've done that with Nigeria. They've done it to Sweden. But will they do it, for Maher's sake, Joe, to Canada? What can you tell Maher about Canada's?
Canada. Yeah.
Well, when I say what can you tell Maher about, I meant what can you tell Maher about Canada's prospects in the World Cup?
Well, Maher might be a better person to talk about Canada than me. But I mean, for my 2 cents, I think they surprised a lot of people in the last World Cup. If I'm being honest, I think
the first game was just stunning. They should have won it. The first game, and it was the first game was Belgium, I think, and in the second game they lost it very unfortunately. The second game they made a mistake. They chased Croatia too much, and they gave the Croatian midfield too much space. But there was obviously something there. How has that developed?
Yeah, I think it's improved actually over this cycle. If I'm being honest, at least for what I'm seeing, I think now that they have that experience underneath their belt and they know what they're walking into, and like I said, they didn't perform that badly at the last World Cup, or really even badly at all. They just were a bit unfortunate. So I like where they're at still right now, and I think they have progressed since then. So I'm looking forward to what Canada can hopefully do.
You almost said Canada as well, didn't you? You almost said Canada there. I heard you. It's an easy mistake to make. Will they do better than the United States?
I think it depends on the group.
Yeah, surely, Joe. And how much are you looking forward to the draw?
I am
in
actually,
terms of the logistics and so on, because I think it's going to be a very, very important draw, isn't it?
I
Who
think
you're
so,
playing, where you're playing, what time of day you're playing, where your next game is, all of that logistical side, I think is going to be very, very important.
Yeah, and I think right now we're getting set up for some really intriguing groups, because if you look at the pots as they stand right now, pretty much pot 1 is like all Europe for the most part. Pot 2 then has some other teams that are mixed in there, from Africa, from I think there's an Asian team in pot 2 as well. So it's going to be intriguing. There could be a couple of different groups that are going to be really tough to get through, I think.
I can't imagine that America will be partying over the the draw. But when will America get the World Cup fever? At what point? Have you started seeing any of that yet? Because by now, if I'm comparing it to 1966, which we always do, the entire world is compared to 1966.
Just because you're the only one who's old enough to remember it.
That's right. By now, and remember, I'd only just arrived in this country 2 months or a month ago, 60 years ago. So the equivalent of 1965. So this would have been 8 or 9 months before the World Cup itself, 9 months before the World Cup. By now, we had heard of World Cup Willie, and we'd seen World Cup Willie. Every opportunity, almost every advert, TV advert, featured World Cup Willie in some way or another. The sponsorship was on full on, and we at school, remember, I'd only been in England at this point, sort of 2 months, but I'd already learned to sing, "We won the cup, we won the cup, E-I-A-D-O, we won the cup." Didn't know what it was about though. So at what point, as America reached any point in this great momentous occasion that's happening next year in their country, along with Mexico and Canada?
I think right now it's still a slow burn, if I'm being honest. I think the fact that tickets have opened up is starting to increase that fire, the fuel for the fire. But even in my own day to day, I'm just not seeing a lot about it at the moment. But yeah, I mean, obviously you guys have probably seen the statistics, but I think the US had the most applications for ticket sales out of any country, which makes sense. And I do think people will show up. I think it's going to be packed stadiums. I'm hopeful, even in the heat, given the fact that there's so many people from different backgrounds that live here anyways, and their country is going to be coming and playing in it. I think they're going to be excited for that. So it hasn't quite reached fever pitch yet, but I think we're starting to ramp up now. Yeah.
How about in Canada?
My only experience of the States is that Copa America, Centenary Copa America in, blimey, it's 9 years. It's more than 9 years ago now. And what I felt was it was fever pitch amongst the immigrant communities, but not amongst the general population. The World Cup, I imagine, has a much, much bigger reach. Do you think the normal population will be engaging with the tournaments?
I do. Yeah, I do, because I think a lot of the media outlets are going to grab onto that versus Copa America. They don't really. A lot of the very soccer specific outlets and perhaps even the sports media here would grab onto the Copa, but the World Cup is different. It's a different animal. And so, yeah, I think it will, hit the general public at some point. What point that is, I don't really know for sure. Could be after the draw, could be even closer to the actual tournament starting, but I think it will hit at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim, you keep saying the World Cup as if an American would understand. It's the World Cup. No,
World Cup.
World Cup.
World Cup. Yeah.
World Cup.
World Cup. That's
yeah,
it.
So please pronounce it correctly. So,
I'll try.
as we've got two representatives from two of the three host nations with us, I've got to ask you guys, of all the places to root yourself for the World Cup in the United States, where would you suggest? Canada, Mexico, or USA? USA. You go first, Maher.
I think it depends, first of all, on the draw as well. We've already said that, so I don't want to repeat ourselves. But if Nigeria somehow make it out and they play in Texas, I want to be in Texas.
My eldest brother lives in my eldest brother lives in Houston, and when I went to visit him the first time, I couldn't believe it. He took me to restaurants where they make Nigerian food at least as well as Nigerians. I was amazed. I couldn't stop eating. I thought I was in Nigeria. And the whole community around him, all his friends are all from Nigeria. My goodness. Yeah, if they play in Houston, I might even come over for that one.
Come over,
that would be a party.
Even Cape Verde, I think they have several 100,000 people in Northeast, apparently in the Boston area. So if they can find a match near there as well, that'd be something to go see. So it's really about, I think, the atmosphere. And we're going to know much more about that on the draw. But I didn't really have a great experience. Sorry, Joe, no offense or anything. At the Club World Cup, I thought everything was too pricey traveling around in the States. And I didn't really feel like outside of the stadium areas that there was too much excitement for the tournament. So just as a broad rule, I thought to myself, I made myself a promise that next summer I'm going to go to Mexico. It's going to be hot. I'm going to suffer for that, but the food is going to be cheap. It should be very tasty.
And
I feel like
going to be mad for it.
100%.
They're going to be mad for it in Mexico. What about if you're an England fan, Joe? Where in the States is, I suppose everywhere, I suppose you'd say, given the Pilgrim Fathers, but where in the States would an England fan feel most at home?
I don't know. You're asking the wrong person. I have no idea. To be honest, I could not give you a straight answer on that, to be fair, because I would not know what they were looking for.
I loved it. My only time there, I loved those. I enjoyed the cities on the east. I enjoyed, obviously, New York.
I was going to say
Philly and Boston. I went to Houston and I thought it was the most bizarre place I've ever been in my life. There's all these. I'm thinking, like, where's the people at? Where are the people at? You know where they are? They're in like tunnels under the ground.
They're in the malls. Yeah.
But it's in tunnels, like under the ground.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll want some of that sun. So maybe Florida.
Well, when you said, Joe, you don't know what England fans are looking for. We're just looking for a New England.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's another reference they won't get.
Yeah.
No, I got it.
They got it. Yeah, they're not that young. They're not as young as they look, Tim. No, this has been amazing. We haven't done Asia. Should we do it very quickly and then wrap up this edition of the Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast on Global Soccer Interactive, actually? But yeah, Asia. What do we need to know?
You need to know that UAE and Iraq are in the playoff to reach the next playoff, the FIFA playoff tournament. It's a home and away leg for each team, so they'll travel to the UAE. They'll go to Iraq. They'll be packed out for it. Iraq has a rich history of filling stadiums. UAE will be pretty full, I would imagine. And so one of those two teams is going to be the Asia representative in the playoff.
And
one thing about Asia that fascinates me is Japan. I just saw Japan beat Brazil. They were 2-0 down at half time, and they won 3-2. Now, friendly schmendly, and it was a reserve Brazil defence that collapsed. But I don't think enough was made of this at the time during the last World Cup when Japan beat Germany and Spain. Because I've never seen a side act like it ever. Like, without making any substitutions. It's like suddenly they flick a switch, and for 15 minutes or something, they're just unbelievable. They're just irresistible. Just waves and waves of attacks. I mean, the Germany game. Germany were all over them and 1-0 up, and then suddenly Japan, no change, just flick a switch, charge forward, and in 10 minutes, they're the best side in the world, and they score 2 goals and win the game. They did something similar against Spain, and they did it against Brazil. I think it was 3 goals in less than 20 minutes. It really fascinated me during the World Cup because, at the time, it's 2022, we're all still thinking in Guardiola terms of control of the game and so on. And Japan, they don't seem to care. They'll hang on, but then suddenly they'll flick the switch, and for a few minutes, they're the best side in the world. And I wonder, in conditions in next year when you'll need to conserve your energy, I wonder if Japan will be capable of flicking that switch at the right time and doing something.
Yeah, it's a valid point and a valid question. It's interesting that you are excited about them, which because ever since they finished qualifying, their friendlies have been a bit what's the right word, subpar. Not their opponents necessarily, but the way that they've been playing. So there was. I don't
think they were really up for it, but they were really up for Brazil. They'd never beaten Brazil at senior level before, so they were really, really up for it. It was like a World Cup game against Germany or Spain.
Yep, and that made all the difference, I think. So, yeah, it's going to be fun to watch them for sure.
If you had your way, Maher, which is the even though the draws haven't been made, which would be the dream matchup for you to go and watch at this World Cup? Maybe teams that you haven't seen before, or teams that you think that will be a great match.
I'd like to watch if Curacao and Suriname and these teams make it. I would be very curious to see what they look like. Cape Verde as well, just like some of those smaller nations that we might not have a chance to see at the World Cup. Even though the way they're going, I expect they'll probably be back somewhere down the line. So those smaller nations, just to learn more about them. I've always been fascinated in immigration, diaspora, things like that. So that would be cool. Historically heavy matches like Algeria versus France would be great too. I would love to see that. Or
the Battle of Algiers derby, isn't it? The Battle of Algiers derby. Is it Battle of Tangier derby?
No, Algiers, yeah. And then other than that is just like I said before, like seeing those African communities that are already in the US. So for example, there's a huge East African community in Minnesota. We have known East African teams at the World Cup, but Nigeria in Texas, Cape Verde in Boston, things like that. I think I would be really excited to see as well.
Well, I don't know. Eritrea might make it through, Joe. They still have a chance of making it through.
They pulled out.
All right. Okay. I'm just checking. Well, East African guys, it's been amazing. Look, I'm sorry that it's rushed this time, but we'll spend some more time on this coming towards the World Cup. Really appreciate your time.
Dotun, are you coming to the World Cup?
I hope.
I know Tim's going to be there.
Yeah, I hope so.
I very much doubt it. Yeah. Very much doubt it. I think I'll be right here. Yeah, I'll be right here. I'm not particularly bothered about going to Trump Town at the moment. Anyway. I'd quite like to see, Trumpton. I'd quite like to see Mexico. I've never been, but World Cups. it's even more grueling when you're there, because you're traveling around. It's grueling enough
48
doing it
teams
from
now,
home.
too.
Yeah. So I imagine. But anyway,
Yeah,
I'm a dreamer, aren't we all? I want to see something from Senegal.
Indeed.
Sounds like Muhammad Ali with those arms. Very good.
Yeah. Guys, thank you very much. This has been the Global Soccer Interactive. You can join us anytime. We do this every Thursday, and of course, Brazilian Shirt Name on a Wednesday. So 4 p.m. is the time. Join us again. Joe, all the best. And Joe Gould from the window. How can people get to join you on the window?
Yeah, you can listen to us on all the major podcast platforms. We'll be recording our review show here in the next couple of days for this October window, and you can follow us on X or Instagram at window INTL pod.
And Maher, how can we get some more chicken tikka masala?
Well, you could listen to the World Football Phone-In. I'm there once, every 6 weeks or so. Other than that, on Twitter at Mezahi Maher, my last name and then my first name, or the African Five-A-Side podcast on YouTube.
Brilliant. Let's do it again. Thank you.
Get in touch with the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast on Twitter at BrazilShirtPod, or you can email us BrazilianShirtNamePod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and tell a friend. The Brazilian Shirt Name podcast is an 1129 production.